Jeremiah, the man and his mission. Jeremiah was born into a priestly family in a small village called Anathoth. Anathoth is outside of Jerusalem, which is in the southern kingdom, Judah. At the time of his life, Judah was controlled by the Assyrians, friends of the Israelites and Egyptians. Jeremiah loved the ancient stories of the Old Testament, and he was intrigued by the stories of Moses. Jeremiah was called to prophesy by God when he was very young. Jeremiah attempted to escape God's call by claiming he was too young to do God's work. Then God touched his mouth and said, "Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth." Around 609 BC, the Assyrian Empire fell to the Babylonians. Jeremiah saw how ungodly the people of Judah became, and he told them to repent for their sins because the Babylonians were to take Judah next. If they were not to repent to God of their sins and not accept the future Babylonian rule, the Judeans would surely become slaves of the Babylonians. This would only show the punishment that Judah would receive from God. Jeremiah read this warning from a scribe in the great temple of Jerusalem. The king of Judah was infuriated with Jeremiah's message, and he burned Jeremiah's scribe and imprisoned him as a traitor. Jeremiah was imprisoned several times, but between these imprisonments, he used performance art by using literal illustrations and props to stress his biblical points. For example, he wore a wooden yoke around his neck to show the Judeans the slavery that Babylon will put them in. Jeremiah served wine to a family that vowed temperance, and this showed dishonesty and disobedience. And at a time while he was in prison, he bought land owned by a relative to show that the Judeans will one day get their land back. Even with all of these examples that Jeremiah demonstrated, the Judeans still kept up their unreligious ways and viewed Jeremiah as a traitor. Jeremiah still loved man, though, despite their evil ways, and he felt sorrow and sympathy for the Judeans. As Jeremiah lived and warned the Judeans of the fall of Jerusalem, he lived a very lonely and unappreciated life. Though he was unheeded and consistently humiliated, he still kept preaching God's warning. Finally, around 586 BC, everything Jeremiah preached came true. Judah fell almost entirely to the Babylonians. Many fled to Egypt, and Jeremiah reluctantly went too. As read in the New Book of Knowledge, in Egypt, Jeremiah continued to be a strict judge of his people. He condemned them bitterly for worshiping false gods. Very little is known about the last part of his life. According to legend, he was stoned to death by some of his own people. He was a very courageous prophet, with extreme perseverance. Since he survived the destruction of Jerusalem, his prophecies became ones of comfort, restoration, and hope for a new moral order. Jeremiah loved God, and he was faithful to God to the end.